Hey guys, I'm Georgia and welcome back for another episode of my Midweek Mystery series, where today I want to share with you the details of a John Doe case from here in the UK, an unidentified male murder victim found in the Clocaenog forest in Denbighshire in Wales in November 2015. 6 years on and we have no further answers as to who this man was or who murdered him. I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but I will never stop stressing how important it is to share these stories of Jane and John Doe's. All it takes is one person with even the smallest of tips, and a case such as this one can easily be solved. I cover a lot of Doe cases from over the pond in the USA. In such a big country with so many different jurisdictions and state lines, it can sometimes be understandable how lines of communication fall away and cases don't get solved, people don't get identified. The USA is a huge country with so many people. But we're a lot smaller over here in the UK and Doe cases don't tend to pop up quite as often. Simply because our population is so much smaller obviously, but also people generally live a lot closer to each other, cities and towns and villages are closer, and it's more likely that people recognise faces of missing and unidentified people. It's slightly more unusual that unidentified people remain unidentified on this relatively small island, especially with modern technology. It's not impossible, of course, as this case suggests, but it's definitely more unusual. That's why I don't cover as many Doe cases from my home country. The latest numbers I could find were published by the National Crime Agency on March 31st, 2020, with police forces across the UK having 769 cases involving unidentified bodies, plus a further 149 partial remains. Interestingly, there's also 56 living people whose identities can't be traced. A whopping 277 of those unidentified bodies actually fall under the jurisdiction of the Metropolitan Police, who service the Greater London area, although I suppose that makes sense with 8.6 million residents in London, but that's a big percentage of all unidentified people in the UK. But let's get to today's John Doe, who was not found in London. He was found on the evening of Saturday the 14th of November 2015 by two brothers, Andrew and Mark Middle. They were camping in Clocaenog Forest in North Wales whilst attending the 2015 Wales Rally GB and Auto Racing Championship, which draws in significant crowds whenever it happens. Mark is the one who came across the remains whilst he was out looking for firewood, saying that he found some bones. Some sources say that he actually found the skull on the floor, which he then realised on closer inspection was actually human remains. Of course, the brothers contacted the North Wales Police, who got the call at 8:35 PM, and they swiftly launched a large-scale forensic search around the forest. After some painstaking work, they were able to recover virtually the entire skeleton after 21 days. The majority of the skeleton was found in dense trees and undergrowth just a few metres away from where the skull was found. Due to the state of decomposition, it was basically only a skeleton covered in moss. It was believed that the body had been there for several years. Anywhere from 5 to 20 years is speculated in this case. Autopsy and forensics have since revealed a significant amount of information about this body. It was definitely a male, and the UK Missing Persons Unit states that he was 5'8 to 5'10 in height with a stocky build. Whilst an appeal from Detective Superintendent Iestyn Davies of North Wales Police states more specifically that he was around 5'9.5 inches tall and he was well built. Forensic testing was able to establish that this man was born prior to 1950, with bone testing suggesting that he was at least 54 years old, but more likely to be over 60 at the time of his death. Importantly, it's noted that his ethnicity is unknown. Any reconstructed photos of him are in black and white, and I have a feeling that's to keep his ethnicity ambiguous. He was said to have a strong male face with deep-set eyes. The nose had previously been broken, but was fairly straight considering this, and his eye colour is unknown. John Doe had had extensive dental work carried out throughout his life, with a number of crowns on his front teeth, which were likely applied in the UK at some point between 1980 and 2000. He also had a unique remedial filling to a temporary plastic crown on one tooth, and this is very unusual as temporary crowns are not usually filled, but the crown was plastic and had been badly worn down. John Doe also had several missing molars, which likely would have caused his cheeks to appear sunken in life. Due to the missing molars but the high quality dental work later in life, it's wondered if this man had a change in circumstance at some point, possibly came into some money, or maybe even had someone come into his life who cared and urged him to get treatment. Detectives have appealed for any dentist who might be familiar with this work in the year specified to come forward, as it is highly distinctive and specialist work. Information about the work was published in dentistry journals by police, but of course it doesn't seem like anyone has come forward recognising it just yet. John Doe also had a number of medical conditions, including arthritis and an inflammatory joint condition which would have caused him pain and reduced movement at times. He had previously suffered injuries to his spine, he had a fusion to his vertebra in the mid-lower back, he had a broken nose, and possibly had an injury to his left wrist as well. So this wouldn't have been a super fit and active man, he likely would have been in pain a lot. In terms of clothing at the scene, investigators did uncover a dark green Pringle jumper fairly close to the remains, as well as a badly decomposed pair of wine-coloured Marks & Spencer's underpants with a waist size of 36 inches to 39. These may well have belonged to the victim and been what he was wearing at the time of his death, although this cannot be confirmed, they weren't found on his body. One report from the Denbighshire Free Press website states that the jumper may have been very badly decomposed, writing that fibres were found at the scene and they had been analysed and identified to be from a Pringle jumper. So I don't think this was a case of just pulling out a fully formed jumper from the undergrowth. But then again, they have been able to confirm that it was a V-neck and a size extra large, so I don't think it was just fibres either. Pringle later confirmed that this particular style of jumper was produced between 2000 and 2004, whilst M&S confirmed that the underwear was manufactured in 1999. If these items did indeed belong to John Doe, then this will probably pinpoint his year of death as sometime in the early 2000s. Analysis on routes where his body was found also pinpoints it to around this time, focusing from around 2004 to 2010, but they say it could well have been earlier. John Doe's DNA was of course entered into national databases, the National DNA Database and the UK Missing Person Bureau, but there has not yet been a match. Detectives have announced that they were undertaking familial DNA research, and frustratingly, we don't really have anything like the DNA Doe project in the UK just yet. We don't have anyone working tirelessly on finding matches through genealogy, so it is just a case of waiting here, I'm afraid. I did actually do a bit of research into this, why the UK hasn't undertaken this yet, and it does seem that in September of just last year, the government did take a look at whether we should be using this kind of genetic genealogy to assist in solving crime, and they issued a whole report into the subject. It's actually quite an interesting read, so I'll link it down below, but here's some excerpts from it for you. It reads, "The UK already has one of the most efficient DNA databases in the world, and conventional methods, with appropriately applied familial searches, will identify the bulk of perpetrators. If a genealogy approach is used, a proportion of the potential relatives will not be UK-based, and this could add significantly to the genealogical effort. The US-centric nature of the GEDmatch database may limit the power of identification, and the question of cost-benefit will need to be considered. Identification of cases where genetic genealogy may be appropriate must be carefully defined to enable an ethical and reasoned decision to be made." At the time of writing, familial searching is done only in the most serious of unsolved crimes, and permission to conduct these requires approval of the Forensic Information Database Services Strategy Board. Only 17 were authorised in 2018-2019. At the time of writing this report, the whole process is unregulated and ethical, legal and safeguarding issues must be considered. The report winds up by saying that the genealogical approach should only be used once traditional methods have been exhausted, and it's not clear whether an individual can freely give consent for their genealogical data to be used under the Data Protection Act of 2018. When you give consent to your DNA being used, it also reveals sensitive information about genetic family members in the past, present, and future. One individual can't consent to that, and there's question as to whether it's an unnecessary invasion of privacy and data security. The report doesn't completely dismiss the idea of genetic genealogy being used by law enforcement, but it does raise a lot of fair questions, and honestly, I don't see it becoming commonplace in the UK anytime soon. Sorry, maybe all that was super boring for people, but I just thought it was super interesting, and it's interesting to see the difference in Doe cases in the UK and the USA. You're probably wondering at this point in the video, what was John Doe's cause of death? Pathology showed that the man had died from significant blunt trauma to the head, some sources saying that his cause of death was beating. Therefore, this is a murder investigation, and police feel that he had been killed elsewhere before being dumped in the woods by his killer. Investigators have said that only once they get John Doe's name will they be able to figure out why he was killed and by whom. John Doe was found in a relatively remote area. This forest isn't necessarily a huge tourist attraction, so it's not like your standard person would know it was there. Therefore, they originally focused their investigation in the immediate area, believing that John Doe was likely from North Wales. However, in the following years, they have expanded their horizons, believing that he may well have been from England. I saw Merseyside mentioned in quite a few articles, and it seems they did focus there quite a lot. There are two attractions in this part of Wales which investigators have always focused on, trying to get John Doe's details out there to the crowds. If John Doe wasn't from the area and was killed in the area, he likely came in for one of these two things. Either the Wales Rally GB, formerly known as the RAC Rally, which ironically is what the men who discovered his body were also in the area for, as well as Llanbrynnig. This is a popular sailing location, and people from all across the country travel in to sail here. Investigators ensured that people at Llanbrynnig knew the details of this case, as well as focusing on spreading the word at the rally in following years by distributing leaflets. Of course, no one has come forward with any information. John Doe's death may well be unconnected to these two things, but it was worth a try. In a September 2016 episode of BBC's Crime Watch, police released images showing aged photos of this man, showing what he may have looked like in his 50s, 60s and 70s. They don't know his exact age at time of death, so showing a wide range of age-progressed photos make it more likely that someone will recognise him. Whilst the show did bring in a number of tips that police said were promising, it's now 5 years on and none of said tips led to answers. The next year, in 2017, there was an interesting lead when the police were contacted by serial killer Peter Moore, who was responsible for the deaths of 4 males. Police met with Moore and he claimed that he knew the identity of the Clocaenog forest man as he's known, claiming that the man was a mature student at Aberystwyth University who disappeared in 1996. And upon investigation, it was found that there was indeed a mature student who had disappeared in January 1996 from Aberystwyth University, 46-year-old Roger Evans. We don't have much word from the police on this, but Moore has since said that the police discounted this lead due to the dates not matching up. Moore wrote in a letter, "The skeleton found by men attending a car rally is in exactly the same place as Edward Carthy was found and who I was found guilty of murdering." I'm not sure if he was alluding to the fact that he was the one responsible for John Doe's death, and a Daily Post article says it's not known if the body's location did tally with the same place as Edward Carthy. There's not loads of information about Peter Moore's crimes online, if I'm being honest, so I can't confirm or deny this. And to be fair, Roger Moore did go missing in 1996. The clothes found at the site were from 1999 to 2000 at the very, very earliest, So if it is the body of Roger Evans, maybe the clothes don't belong to him, but he was also only 46, much younger than investigators say that the John Doe is, so it doesn't match up. And that's about all of the information we have about the Clocaenog Forest man. But no one is a complete loner. Everyone had family at one time, they had friends at school, people they saw down the pub, a cashier they chatted to at the local off licence each morning. There are people out there who would have known and spoken to our John Doe. Now it's just about finding them. If he were alive today, he would likely be in his 70s or possibly even 80s, so it's important the word about this case is spread now. Anyone with information would likely be around the same age as him. Anyone who has any information is asked to contact the North Wales Police. Or you can go to the UK Missing Persons Unit website, and his case is 15-006991. I'll also link it in the description. There's an option on the page to contact them directly about this case. You can also provide information via the Locate Missing People website, whose University of South Wales team are leading their investigation, or via Crime Stoppers, quoting Operation Tractile. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you live in North Wales, if you live anywhere near Clocaenog Forest, then please tell people about this story. Ask your relatives, ask friends, just get the word out there. There's a chance he may not have been from Wales at all. Like I said, the police do think that he was killed elsewhere and travelled here, but Clocaenog Forest isn't necessarily a place that most people would really know about. I personally never heard of it before I started researching for this video, so chances are he was from the area, or at least maybe an hour or two radius. If there are any other UK John or Jane Doe cases that you would like to see me cover, then please put them in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.